I love foot watching. From that very first Maundy Thursday service I attended when I was 10 years old and I had no idea what was going on, I have always enthusiastically leapt up to have my feet washed. It honestly never occurred to me not to. I've never had a problem with feet, never understood why people squeal with embarrassment or insist on getting a pedicure before taking their socks off in church. And for years, I just could not fathom why someone wouldn't want to participate in this incredible ritual. Every year, I bared my feet with pride. Now, I'm sure we have people in this room from every imaginable camp when it comes to feet. Maybe you love foot washing, maybe you hate it, maybe you're indifferent, maybe you have no idea what it is. Probably the disciples had a similar mix of reactions when Jesus washed their feet. But people change. And if we let it, liturgy can be a powerful vehicle for that change. So tonight, I'd like to share with you a story about a time in my life that permanently altered how I experienced this most holy night and the intimate ritual that comes with it. I'm gonna get personal. I have always been a restless, fidgety person. I always need something to do with my hands, and being a child of the 90s, long before the advent of fidget toys, I learned to channel that energy into what was available to me, which so happened to be picking at my hands and feet. It took years before I learned that this habit has a name, actually many names, and can, with proper help, be treated. But for a long, long time, I lacked the vocabulary and support to ask for help, and so I just picked because I had no idea how to stop. For years, I kept this embarrassing habit a secret, or I tried, until one fateful summer about 10 years ago, an especially large callus on the bottom of my feet, yes, we're going to talk about feet, attracted my nervous attention. And so, spurred by boredom or restlessness or aimless anxiety, honestly couldn't even tell you, I picked at it, and I picked at it, I picked at it, until eventually, inevitably, I struck live flesh. But even then, I couldn't stop. Within no time, what had been a healthy foot became a mangled mass of infected flesh, and I had finally done it. I had finally gone too far. I can still taste the shame that I felt. Even then, for as long as I could, I pretended everything was fine. Because that's what we do. I did my best to cover up the gaping hole in my foot. I wore sneakers, even though it was August in New York City. And no one wears sneakers in August in New York City. But it wasn't until the infection had gotten so bad that I couldn't walk without excruciating pain that I finally admitted that maybe something was wrong. And I swallowed my pride and limped to the doctor, where I allowed another human being to take my shame in hand. As I explained to the polite PA when it happened, I was convinced that she would recoil in horror or mock me, or have me parceled off immediately to the nearest psych facility. For endless credit, she did none of the above. But I felt so broken and so exposed and frankly so completely unhinged because clearly normal people don't rip apart their own appendages with their fingernails for reasons they can't quite articulate. But even after receiving medical care, the veil of shame still hung heavily. For the infection to heal properly, I needed to stay off my foot entirely for a week, so I was given a pair of crutches, super fun in New York City, which in turn meant that I was forced to fabricate an explanation why I was hobbling around on crutches without a visual cast or some story to show up. Well, it transpired that the crutches were such a spectacle that I retreated even further into my shame and ultimately took a week off of work and recovered, but mostly I never quite figured out how I was supposed to talk about this in polite company. How this would organically bring up, oh, by the way, I'm a compulsive skin picker. Like so many of the private wounds that torture us the most, skin picking and frankly, any kind of mental health struggle, we can all fill in the blanks from our own lives These are topics that our society has labeled as taboo. And so the shame festers. We do not dare to bring our struggles to light. We do not dare to ask for help and for the healing that we need for fear of being judged or misunderstood or laughed at. So that year, when Holy Week rolled around, for the first time ever, I dreaded Maundy Thursday. The very last thing I wanted was for someone to touch my feet, to run their hands over the scar on my soul, or worst of all, to ask me what I desperately did not want to be exposed in all of my messy, broken, raw humanity and vulnerability. But I'm a priest. And clergy don't get to opt out of foot wash. At least not everyone in our congregations to participate. So I gritted my teeth, and I did as Jesus commanded. I sat down in that chair, my heart pounding. I peeled off my sock, averted my gaze, held my breath, and allowed a fellow human being to see and touch in incredibly uncomfortable intimacy the very last thing that I wanted anyone to notice. Now, I have spent untold hours researching the Holy Week rites. I've written hundreds of pages about this night in particular. I thought I knew what Maundy Thursday was all about. I was wrong. And I'm sharing this long and deeply personal and frankly gross story with you because for me, it took that all-consuming experience of desperate shame and the embodied sacramental encounter with the boundless love of God through the hands of another human being for me to truly understand in my own flesh what this night is all about. That was the year that I needed foot washing the most. That was the year I began to get it. Because what Jesus wanted when he knelt before his disciples with a towel in hand was to get right to the heart of their shame and their woundedness and their secret pain. He wanted to take that brokenness in hand and love it, and not in some fluffy abstract way, but physically, skin to skin, body to body. This story, this night, is a vital part of our salvation story. Before Jesus gave his life on the cross, before he rose victoriously from the tomb, Jesus took the time to inscribe his love on the hearts of his friends one final time by touching their most vulnerable and fearful places and saying, even this is not too broken, too twisted, too gross for me to love. Not even close. And he continues to do the same for us. That is what Maundy Thursday is all about. A chance for us to experience in our own bodies the sweet reassurance that no secret pocket of shame that we carry is too much for God to handle. It is a chance to be seen and loved in our unvarnished completeness. And for most of us, our deepest wounds have nothing to do with our feet, so we have to use our imagination. Perhaps what we need to offer to God's embrace tonight is our shame around unemployment, or depression, or chronic disease, or addiction, or something else entirely. Perhaps the wound that's crying out for healing doesn't fit into the tidy box of a label or a diagnosis. Perhaps we don't know the name for it. Perhaps we've never dared to speak it aloud. It doesn't matter to God. Because no matter what we think is wrong with us, we are never too broken for God to love. And that way we heal is not to hide, but to open. Today, on this extraordinary Holy Thursday, this day cracks open the normal bounds of space and time to create a space of radical and surprising safety, where we can be Christ to one another and experience the grace of being seen and touched and held with infinite love. So tonight, let the water dissolve that brittle crust of your shame. Let the hands of your neighbor cradle your vulnerability. Let the towel embrace your pain. Tonight, you are seen. Tonight, you are loved. Tonight, you are whole. So with courage and trembling, and all of our beautiful, holy humanity, let us stand